I see Mexico as a great study in progress. I was very, very heartened to see all of the changes that have been occurring here since my first visit with the UN's Blue Heart campaign in 2010. At that point, what we understood from the outside, and the figure might have been slightly off, but there had been either 0 or 1 conviction of a human trafficker, even though the Palermo Protocol had much predated our visit. And on that visit, I got to meet Rosie Orozco and was impressed with her activism and asked to see the shelter that she was working with, and got to meet these incredible survivor girls there. But they all broke my heart. They all made me very sad by the terrible abuses they had endured, the terrible injustice of a child whose life is given no value by the clients and by the system of belief that a woman can be bought, a girl means nothing, a machist belief that it's okay to use a child's body again and again for pleasure by men. It's just a horrendous thought. And I was impressed with the way that the people at the shelter loved the girls, gave them so much constant care and reinforcement, and tried to protect them from their own potential to harm themselves. I remember them saying, well, there's very little glass in the house, so they can't use it to cut their wrists. And I didn't even think of that. That never even occurred to me until that moment. But there was also a young woman who was working there and had been a victim of sexual exploitation herself, although not under the technical definition of child sex trafficking because she was older. But it's the same abuse, so it doesn't really matter your age. And she said that, the people, their clients were police and local government officials and priests, and her quote was, they think that we were cockroaches, that we were born for this. But we are not. We were born for so much more than this. And coming back and seeing the power of the supervivientes, seeing how enlightened and strong they are, and what a shining example they are for other people who are still trapped in bondage, really rang true that statement that she said we were born for so much more than this. I mean, they've proven themselves to be heroic crusaders against this terrible crime. But I also want to point out the enormous change in Mexico City and beyond in terms of prosecution. There have been so many cases now prosecuted. I forget the exact number, but it's in the hundreds, if not 500. There have been many victims rescued. There have been many campaigns. There seems to be a national movement growing of young people who do not support the idea of this sexual exploitation, who are rising up to show that this is not the future they want for their country. And that is very heartening to me. That makes me feel, although it's incremental, change is happening, change is possible. I can track literally in 6 years an enormous amount of growth here, and largely due to Rosie, largely due to Unidos versus Trata. You all have been tireless in your fight on this topic of slavery. The training that you offer, which is so crucial to change the way people understand the laws. People in the legislature don't even know sometimes how to use the written human trafficking laws. Or teachers don't know the signs of when a child in school is at risk for being trafficked or is being trafficked if they don't have this training. Education in schools, which I know that there's a push for, and maybe it's not happening really yet, but I would strongly advocate for it being added to every junior high school and high school curriculum. The dangers of the pimps who lure underprivileged girls or girls with abusive backgrounds with false promises of love or employment, of companionship, of protection, because many people who become victims were already victimized in their own homes. Abuse in the home everywhere in the world is the number one precursor to vulnerability to being trafficked. So I'm really impressed. I cried a lot over the past few days, seeing Carla last night and hugging her. And, I don't want to paint it that she got over it. She got over what had happened to her, Carla Jacinto. It will always be there. What she suffered was real. It is never erased. And when I hugged her, we both were shaking. Like, we both shared this sadness of what has happened to her. But she has risen above it and moved beyond it to a way to make her life meaningful for her and for many others. And that I find so inspiring and so beautiful. I'm almost beyond words for it. And she is a true hero for me. All of them are, but I have a special connection with her because of the fate that brought us together again at the Vatican, and for me to see this transformation for someone that I had foolishly thought was sort of beyond repair, beyond being able to be happy again or even confident or productive in life. She's fantastic. She's funny. She's smiling. She's a mother. She's a leader. She's a wonderful woman. And that's who we have to remember in all of this are the victims. Because every person out there suffering from any form of slavery, be it sexual or labor trafficking, is just like you and me. Under different circumstances, any one of us could fall into that situation. Even wealthy people can be trafficked. So, of course, it affects the disadvantaged, the poor more, the undereducated more. But anyone in the wrong circumstances with the right trafficker could be put into slavery. And all of these people are our brothers and sisters. All of these children are all of our children. I know Mexican people are like Italian people. I'm Italian. There's a lot of commonality. There's a lot of warmth. There's a lot of love. And I know you love your children. But it's time for us to remember all of the children. All of the children out there are all of our children. It's not just our own families or the ones that we can see. We have to think about the ones who are hidden from our view, as Carla was, as that little girl who was 7 when I met her and had been in the Cancun brothel for 3 years, was hidden from our view. But they can't be hidden from our hearts any longer. We have to have the compassion to understand that the most heinous crime is being visited upon the most vulnerable, sweet people in the world, little children, and that we have the power to stop it if we care enough. And just seeing the effect of this group of individuals who came together, like Rosie, like yourself, like everyone who's involved here and who's been at this conference, the effect of that impulse and that desire to change things, including the passage of the law in 2013, I believe, the strengthening of the law, the protecting of it from interests that would take it apart and make it more advantageous to pimps. That's all based on people who are following their will and their heart to make a change. So anyone who says change is not possible is simply lying. We have the proof here. It's amazing. So I invite everyone to join this, because if everyone decides to be an abolitionist, slavery will stop overnight. Thank you.